Hi, my name is Justin DeTavio, and welcome to Film Don't Lie. This is 2018 Valentine's Day week's edition here, covering college football and 5 main topics. There will be an accompanying article on Saturday Blitz called College Football's Fifth Quarter. Check that out as well, IronmanFootballBlog.com, at IMFB_BLOG on Twitter, and the podcast Coach Speak. We have great guests on there and great topics. So our 5 topics today for this Film Don't Lie episode are going to be the transfer rule. What's going to happen with the transfers? Is it free agency? Johnny Football being Johnny Comeback, his comeback story. Now he's once one of our elite players in college football lore. Top 5 storylines heading into the spring of 2018. Urban Meyer's coaching staff, how loaded it is, and Bill C's S&P Plus preseason rankings are up, as well as a couple of surprises along the way in those S&P Plus rankings. So let's get started right away. You have the transfer rule. Football Scoop put up an article about how the transfer rule will not, if the NCAA listening, will not lead to free agency. There's no way that it'll ever be free agency. They're still proposing the Big 12's kind of quote-unquote great compromise, which is that they're going to allow the student-athletes who sign their letter of intent, who are on scholarship at a school, and the coach decides that they're going to leave or they are fired. So in other words, give an example. Players at Florida State who signed with Jimbo Fisher would be free to go if they choose not to play for Willie Taggart. They cannot go to Texas A&M, but they can choose to leave one time and be able to play right away. So they can't leave 3 times in an Oregon situation where they go from Helfrich to Taggart to Cristobal, but they could leave once inside if their coach leaves, and they cannot follow the coach. So, an Oregon kid could not then turn around and go to Florida State, but they could transfer to Florida, and play right away. They're also talking about maybe some high-achieving academic kids, certain benchmarks they can meet where they can transfer one time without sitting out as well. Once you graduate and you have the grad transfer rule, you're able to kind of, go where you want for that year and not have to sit out. So just looking at this rule and revisiting it in the Big 12 and how the NCAA promises no free agency, I think that's a great idea. No free agency. You can't just move around year to year. Also, your credits won't transfer. So if you know anything about college admissions and transfer credits, they're not going to transfer. All right, so I think that it will work out well for college football, and it gives some of the power back to the players, which is obviously very necessary with the arguments about payment, pay for play, etc. And not being able to block where a kid goes, I think needs to be necessary. None of our opponents next year, none of the ACC, whatever, that needs to go as well. So you need to figure out a nice move where if you are going to transfer and not sit out, you should be able to play wherever you want as long as you're not following the coach. And even transfers who sit should not be able to be blocked to other schools. So you've got to give some of this rights and responsibilities back to the kids. Another topic, number 4 here is going to be Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel is turning Johnny Comeback. Manziel had all the talent and physical ability in the world to be able to do the job. He just couldn't get his personal life straight. He's a 6 foot, 200-pound quarterback out of Texas. He was a 2012 Heisman Trophy winner. His big story was beating Nick Saban in Alabama in Tuscaloosa. There's 100,000 fans there, and he pulls the upset as a redshirt freshman, throwing for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, running for another 90. He really was the spread offense dual threat deal that sort of made Nick Saban, open up and realize a little bit that he might have to make some changes in the way that they adapt and play against different quarterbacks and different systems. It's really the one that made Nick Saban start to have to adapt. He plays the next year. It's not like A&M ever has like a big season or anything under him. They won 8 or 9 games. And then he gets the NFL. He's drafted 22nd overall by the Browns in 2014. He lasts 2 whole seasons, 14-15. He's got some starts under his belt there in the NFL, but with the Browns, but not a whole lot. It's partying and arrests, possible domestic violence stuff. So he then kind of fades away. Some more issues arise, more stories about him partying. And then all of a sudden he winds up in rehab. Comes out talking about some mental illness stuff, bipolar disorder, addiction, drinking away his depression, stuff like that. Well, now he seems to look better. He sounds better. He's in training videos. You can tell at the foot speed, so the videos are always a little silly when you see those videos because it's not always stuff that you're going to actually be doing on the field. But he's going to Spring League. Spring League's out in Austin, Texas, and that's probably even better that it's close to home. And for a variety of reasons we'll get to in a second. But, what's the Spring League? Spring League is a 3-week showcase of 4 teams of former NFL talent. They get 2 games apiece to show off. They're talking about televising the thing. thing. Scouts will definitely be there as it's during the off season, and this guy's looking to sign some free agents, bring him into camp. And Manziel could be a guy coming into camp. Not God knows, the NFL is short on quarterback talent, and the guy is talented if he can keep it all together. I think it's great that it's close to home, not because it's easy, because that's even harder for him. All of those lures will be there that are going to be the triggers will be there that are going to cause that. So now he's back on TV, he's under pressure, stress level has got to be high, and he's going to be close to home. Austin, Texas, place he's used to partying, and now he's got to look himself in the mirror and be able to overcome the stress, overcome the desire to go out and kind of fall back. If he can really hold it together for those 3-4 weeks, I think it's going to prove that he is closer and closer to establishing himself as somebody that you can take a risk on. And he'd be a cheap risk. He's a guy you bring in for camp. So more power to Johnny. If he's really going to turn it around, I'm all for Johnny comeback and hope that he finds himself and figures this thing out. Our next topic are, what are the 5 storylines heading into spring? Well, I look at Urban Meyer's big money spent on assistants to pay Greg Schiano, Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, Alex Grinch, all $800,000 up to $1.5 million to pull in the number 2 recruiting class. They've got to hit the college football playoff this year. They've got to be in the national championship game, not even the Final Four. They got to make it to the Final 2, or it's money poorly spent, because you've got back-to-back number 2 classes and a number 4 and 7 class who will be participating on the field, and it's time to put up or shut up. You've got Schiano, Wilson, Day, yourself, and Alex Grinch. If you can't make it happen with that, what can you make it happen with? I think number 4 would be Mark Richt's Hurricanes. They got to be a little bit more than just a cute story. It was Mark Richt's coming home after Georgia in 2016. That was the big story. 2017 was a turnover chain. No more fluff pieces. Time to finally find a quarterback, establish a real offensive identity, and win some damn football games. Number 3, who are the quarterbacks for 2018? Man, there's a huge quarterback class heading off to the NFL, and the college football world has to replace them. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. That's a lot of talent right there. So who's going to replace them? Will it be somebody at Florida or Florida State or Miami? Does Francois bounce back at Florida State? At Miami, does Malik Rosier hold his job, or is it N'Kosi Perry that steps up and kind of becomes in the spotlight? Trace McSorley, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Herbert, from Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon will be big names. But, maybe it's a big freshman year. Maybe it's a year where some of these true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, really step up and take over, kind of like Darnold and Rosen and Jackson did back in their time. But that's a huge star-studded class to lose, and to lose it a couple years in a row. A ton of QB talent. So we'll see what happens. Number 2, Saban, 4th straight title appearance, 2-1 so far. He's beaten, lost to Clemson. He beat UGA in overtime. Can they get back there? And then number 1, new coaches and new locations. You got Willie Taggart to Florida State, Jimbo Fisher to A&M, Chip Kelly to UCLA, Scott Frost to Nebraska, and Dan Mullen to Florida. Who has the best 2018 of them? Who has the best 2 to 3 year run? Who's still around in 5 years, even in the same location? I think the highest expectations have to be on Jimbo. Between 100,000 fans that are going to be at every single game, they'll have a huge spring game attendance. He's being paid $75 million. He's really got to put this thing together. Speaking of that Urban Meyer coaching staff in 2018, it is through the roof. Kevin Wilson is co-OC, former head coach in Indiana. Tons of experience and talent there with him. $800,000 what he's getting paid. You have Ryan Day, another co-OC, making $1 million. You have defensive coordinator Greg Schiano, former head coach of the Bucks and Rutgers Scarlet Knights, making $1.5. And you bring in a 10th assistant who's making a little more money than other people's 10th assistant. He's making $800,000. The former Washington State Cougars defensive coordinator to come on be the 10th assistant. I'm not even sure if his role has been really decided yet, at least out in public. And Urban Meyer's new contract. He's $6.4 million in 2017. He's expecting to renegotiate. I had Richard Johnson on my podcast. He was talking about a phrase that goes around the SB Nation offices is if coaching a program, building a program, is talent acquisition, talent development, and talent deployment, think about the Ohio State Buckeyes coaching staff. You've got development. They have, acquisition. They pulled together a 7-4, 2-2 rankings per 24/7 composite in recruiting. So that's the last 4 classes are 7-4, 2-2. So you've got some unbelievable talent acquisition going on. And Greg Schiano was rated one of the top 5 recruiters in the country this past year. You look at talent development. You've got an NFL pipeline going. They formed, a great pipeline with 30 guys being drafted in the last 4 years. So over 7 guys this season being drafted. You have Mickey Marotti, the athletic performance, strength and conditioning guy. He's got 3 rings, 2 with Florida with Urban Meyer, 1 now at Ohio State with Urban Meyer. He is considered one of the best developmental guys. And then you look at deployment. You get 3 former head coaches. You have Alex Grinch, who's considered one of the top young defensive coordinators in college football. And Meyer has 3 rings himself and an undefeated season at Utah. So they've got to stop taking the ball out of J.K. Dobbins' hands. They've got to let Dobbins kind of carry the load a little bit and let him work in with Dwayne Haskins, who looked great against Michigan. And the bar's going to be high to replace J.T. Barrett. Did a lot more than people get him credit for. But I think the Ohio State coaching staff in 2018 has to be the staff to beat. They're my national championship favorites heading into the spring. Now, you've got our last topic here. You have the S&P Plus rankings from Football Study Hall's Bill C have come out. Who is this top 4? Ohio State sitting at number 1, as they should be, with the things I just mentioned, acquisition, development, and deployment. How can you argue with what Ohio State's bringing to the table? You've got Alabama. Can you really argue Nick Saban? This would be number 4 trip to the championship game in a row, but why not? You have Dabo Swinney with Clemson at number 3. Obviously, Clemson brings back that entire D-line, 3 stars to the quarterbacks. Etienne is back. Whenever Clemson loses stuff, they seem to replace it very, very well, and Dabo's not losing a whole lot this year like he did a year before. And then Washington. Pac-12 is a little bit on the easier side. Chris Peterson's, a hell of a football coach. I could see Washington being the 4th team in, maybe with 1 loss. If you look at them playing Stanford and Bryce Love, they have a little bit easier schedule, as does Clemson. Bama and OSU have pretty darn good schedules this year. So with OSU, you're looking at them playing TCU, Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan, and in Nebraska with Scott Frost. That's a pretty tough schedule. They do get, some new coaches in. You get Penn State replacing Saquon Barkley. But TCU and Michigan State can be 2 of the tougher competitions that they play. You also have Wisconsin, who'd be on the back end of their schedule in the championship game if all goes according to that plan. Bama has a really tough schedule, but you can't count Saban out, and they return both quarterbacks in Tua and Jalen Hurts. You've got Clemson, easier schedule, 3 high-profile quarterbacks again. That D-line coming back helps. And, Washington. Alex Grinch at Washington State, and they were dominating them anyway with him there. Darnold's out at USC. Rosen's out at UCLA. Oregon's on their 3rd coach in 3 years. So you're worried about Stanford and Bryce Love, in my opinion. Some surprises in the S&P Plus rankings. UCF is still at number 17, even though they lost Frost and Shaquem Griffin. I don't think that sticks. You're not going to replace that 13-0 season losing the coach and your defensive captain. Texas is 27. I thought they'd be ranked a little higher, and I think they will by the end of the year. Longhorns have a lot of talent, and they're going to be well coached, and they'll be much improved this year. FAU at 31. The Lane train, does it keep on going, or was it a one-hit wonder? Florida at 32 behind FAU is kind of a shock. Analytics be damned. I just can't see the Owls over the Gators with Dan Mullen coming in. He's got his good freshman quarterback. And then Kent State, how are they not the worst? They're only 127th out of 131, I think he put on the S&P Plus this year. And, they could barely find a coach. So I'm hoping they can put it together. One of those programs that you want to cheer for. But so far, looking a little bit rocky. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this Valentine's Day week episode of Film Don't Lie. Again, IronmanFootballBlog.com, on Twitter at IMFB_BLOG. Hope you guys can, enjoy this one. And we're looking forward to spring games. Appalachian State's already got their spring practice started. And, let's hope some guys can stay out of trouble. We've had a lot of scandals break out, and there's more news about Bob Davie, but we're going to keep this one positive. Enjoy the week after Valentine's Day.